All right. Welcome back. Hope it was good sessions. We've had a lot of really good presenters today, and I get my turn. So I'm going to jump into a few things about Wide Whale, and I promised Matt and Grace that I wouldn't do the I remember when gasoline was a nickel versions of 20 years ago when we started Dealerware. It wasn't that long, but I will go into some history lessons and talk about some things that I want to talk about listening to customers. And something I'm super passionate about was really important as we got the business started. So when we started Dealerware, we had some interactions with some folks from Penske, specifically out East Stevens Creek. And so we went to go visit, and we had, roots from Silver Car, a really good rental car business, hadn't gotten into courtesy fleet management, and they were asking questions about, hey, can we use Silver Car to run our fleets? So we went out there, and to say the least, I was appalled. It was ridiculous. There was a line literally out the street around the dealership. There was a huge line of cars as customers were there on a Monday morning for service. They were parking cars on the street, didn't know where they were, didn't know where the keys were. They were running customers through a single podium where they were contracting customers, taking photocopies of really critical information like their driver's license, their credit card, their insurance. Those papers were flying all over the dealership. It was chaos. Lots of choke points. We talked about the customer experience and how important that is and how we need to work on for loyalty for customers within the industry, creating a better experience that's very differentiated. That was definitely not it. And so we started to work. And when we started working, we built a product and they got fired. And then we built another product and we got fired. And we built another product and we got fired again. And then our telematics didn't work and we got fired again. And then we came back and we got it right. And that was what started Dealerware. And I do want to say, amazing moment in my career to be a part of such a journey, and really appreciate this team. I appreciated the discussion before when we were talking about honoring the past and moving toward the future, and I love seeing what I've seen so far. It's amazing. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come and be a part of this. But when we took this to market, and I'm a recovering sales guy, so as we went through that process, we started thinking about customer experience and how you're evaluating a new product in the market. And I don't mind saying that I was a little disappointed that every discussion with every single stakeholder, including our own board, everything that we were looking at was, how much money are you saving? What's our length of loan going to do? How much money are we recovering? Are you going to get my toll fees back for me? Is it going to be easier for my employees and less expensive? And the big missing aspect here was customer feedback. There's reviews out there, there's reputation management out there, there's CSI data that comes out. It's fairly biased, it's pretty easy to manage that. The questions are sort of limited. It's hard for dealers to get that information. It's really hard to build a story around customer experience and customer feedback. It has been in the industry for a very long time. There are segments that do a good job. There's people that use AI to build their own little listening tools. But in general, the market hasn't jumped into what that looks like. And so for the last 3.5 years, and I started with Wide Whale about 8 months ago, it's a reputation management company. And when I was interviewing for the job, I was like, oh my God, we have 3.5 years of customer intelligence data for the entire market. Every franchise dealer, every single review that's ever been written, every piece of feedback. We've pulled together tags that outline exact customer feedback points, and it allows us to do exactly what we need to do to set a standard for improvement, which is establish a baseline. So every single dealership has a scorecard for the last 3.5 years that we evaluate, we look at trends, and we understand what's happening in the industry. When you implement a change at a dealership, it allows you to track what you're doing. Is it working? Is it not working? Are your customers saying the right things? Are your employees doing the right things for the staff? Are the tools that you're using the right things? Are your practices appropriate? Everything is evaluated. They say so much about what happens at the dealership that, I had a discussion with Carter Myers, came to our NADA booth and walked up to our booth. He's not a customer, and said, I know more about my dealership because of the reports that you guys generate and publish than I get from my own team. And I think that's really compelling to think about how much information is out there. We get about 500,000 new reviews from the industry every single month, and we're calculating those. We're taking that information. When you analyze the delta of what's happening, you can really see what's going on at dealerships, and you can really help operators improve. And it's not just at the dealership, it's at the OEM level too. Those trends are really clear when you look at them the right way. And so what we do to try to juice that and get more information, and the company's been up and running, we're in about 3,000 dealerships at this point, is we drive a lot of signal. So the average dealership is generating about 12 reviews a month. The average wide wheel dealership is generating about 40 reviews a month. That's a lot more signal coming from customers. We talk about the silent satisfied, those that are really happy with what happened and just go about their business. Those that have one little critical piece of feedback and go about their business, we text them, we give them an opportunity to leave a review, a public survey or private survey, or go to a review site and leave that information, and then we capture that information. We also make sure that their listings are appropriate. We have a whole team of folks, they're certainly assisted by AI, but they've responded to millions of reviews on behalf of dealers over the last several years, and that team responds to dealers to make sure that they don't feel like it goes into a vacuum, that it's not heard. All of that stuff, the reputation management aspect, there are a lot of vendors that do that. It's a pretty crowded market, and it's not remarkable to think, hey, ask your customers to leave you a review and send it back. We automate that so it really helps the process go forward, but the gold in what we're doing and where we're finding a lot of information is customer intelligence engine. So internally, we've been using this tool to build reports for the last several years, and a lot of people probably see those. We get published in automotive news all the time, and there's a lot of information that comes out, but we're starting to analyze down to the customer level exactly what's going on at dealerships. We're starting to look at trends. We're starting to identify where people can get better. And what we always get when we share that information is, so what? Who cares? Why does it matter to me? And so we've built a recommendations engine that allows you to take, call it the top 10% of dealers, the top 5% of dealers that are really operating efficiently, and take the best practices that we're learning and plug those into the dealership. So instead of saying, you're awful at this, we're saying, you're awful at this, and here's what you do to get better. And that's a big difference. And so when you think about the macro of this, we've talked a lot about customer experience, and I think we've got some varying numbers here, but there are different variations of the exact same story, which is a lot of people are not coming back to franchise dealers. And that's a huge opportunity. And you ask yourself, why not? What's going on? How do we make this a frictionless process? And when you go in and start analyzing the data, and this is exactly what we've done, tagged everything, and we have 25 different segments of data that you can analyze that identify where you're below benchmark for the industry, where you're above benchmark for the industry. We do this for dealerships, and this is an example of that. Where can I get better? Even if I'm doing a great job, even if I have a 4.8 rating, how do I do better? And we've identified the opportunities here, and we map this against OEM level, regional level. We map this against if you want to be in a state level, we can do that. We have all sorts of variations of ways that we can look at this. Group level, here's an example where you can identify where you can get better, right? Are you getting enough feedback, and are you getting enough signal? Are you responding to that? But also, is your courtesy fleet doing the right thing? Are your customers happy with that experience? How's your pricing? How does that compare with competitors? And so what I think is interesting is when you start to apply things like, when did you install a vendor? When did you make a pricing change as an OEM? How are your pricing practices in general? You can start tapping into those performances, and we do this this is directly out of our product today. We are refining that and pushing out some greater analysis using AI. But if you start to look at topic performance, you can understand which departments are doing a good job and break that out. You can also start to look at your employees and where they need to get better. You think about training. You think about jumping into for performance improvement, and this is a great way to do it. When you think at the macro level, we had a customer that came to us, and this is a really interesting case study, and they decided that they wanted to charge credit card fees back to their customers. It's a big group. It was a big decision. It's a lot of money. And so they did it. What do you guys think happened? Huge scathing review. This is the worst experience. I can't believe this is going to happen. I'm never coming back there. Public review ends up on the desk of the president. His response, as normally would happen, let's shut it down. I'm not going to do it. So we got a call from the Treasury Department of that group. And they said, hey, there's a perception that what we did is really hurting our customer experience. Can you guys run the numbers and help us evaluate this data? So we did. And what we found across 55,000 reviews is it was referenced 0.2% of the time on those reviews. And actually, because they'd gone through really specific training on line item breakdown, pricing evaluation, giving them everything that they needed, their customer experience scores elevated. Their customers were actually happier because there were fewer surprises in the transaction, and they actually decided to continue that practice. Say what you want about that practice. I know there's some OEMs here that are like really not fans of that, but evaluating decisions in this way with the customer's voice as part of your decision process has never happened, has not happened, and that is a really important key. Sometimes you really miss. Sometimes you think when you change prices that it's going to be a huge issue, and it's not. Sometimes the alternate, right? Sometimes you think it's a small change, but it's actually making a huge customer impact. And so taking the customer's voice and applying that is super important. Vendors. So we recently did a project for an OEM that said, hey, we're going to give you the install dates for every single dealer that we have on the product that they've chosen within a specific program. So we did that. In this program, I think we had like 8 vendors that we were evaluating, but this is an example of the insights that we had. So I'll give you a little bit of information about what this chart is telling us. The black line is the customer satisfaction point that they had. So enrollment started, several months ago, really consistent. There's a small variance between the worst performers and the highest performers. And what that means is you have really good training or automation, something that's consistent. You go to a store in California, you go to a store in Kansas, you go to a store in Massachusetts, you're going to get a really similar experience. It's going to be a consistent experience, no surprises for the brand. The yellow implies a huge variance and diminishing value, diminishing quality of service. And that huge variance means if you go to those different stores, you're getting a totally different experience because you're relying on the employee to deliver that, and that technology is probably not as good as you think it is. And so vendors are being evaluated in this way based on customer feedback, very specific customer feedback, and that helps us make better decisions. And again, reflecting back on some of the Dealerware aspect that we talked through, that customer experience was never taken into account, and it's a shame. And I might have a slide here in a little bit that talks about how Dealerware is perceived in the market by customers. It can also be an early warning system. So there was a note that went out a couple weeks ago from the FTC to 97 dealer groups. And I'm not going to go into the prediction markets. I'm not a believer in that stuff. But I got some pretty good information that would help me bet where some of the focus is going to be. Because the customer feedback and what's showing up in publicly available data that we've analyzed is pretty clear about pricing practices, about bait and switch, and gives us some really good early warning systems to help avoid these types of practices, to make sure that the customer experience is the right one and aligned with the brand expectations. And I don't think there's people that are trying to do these things. Maybe they are. But there are a lot of people that I think are unaware of employee-level behavior, and managing large organizations, managing OEMs, it's very tough to manage, right? And so data like this coming directly from your customers as an early warning system, critically important. So I said that I would share it, and I knew this was the case because I know how great the product is, and I understand how well Dealerware shows up for customers. But the time saved, the convenience, the ease, this is a data point where we took every installed Dealerware customer and mapped that against every other customer that referenced a courtesy vehicle in a review. Dealerware stands out significantly as above from a customer experience perspective. And I think it's an important, I'll say this now, I don't get a commission on this one, but I do think it's important to evaluate customer experience as another vector other than profitability, other than operational functionality. It's just been missing in the market for every decision that's been made. And data like this is really good to inform what's going on. And so how does that show up? And there's been some discussions about AEO. So I had somebody that I heard at NADA when I was speaking to them, it really kind of hit home for me, which was AEO is essentially SEO and customer reviews, reputation management. And everything that shows up online is now going to be sourced as these things are going through. These are searches that I put together. What's the best loaner car experience in Austin? Shocker, these are Dealerware customers. First result, right? And that's because their customer experience is so much higher in comparison to what was in place before or other experiences are out there. Same thing, what are the top-rated car auto dealers for pricing and transparency in Austin? There's no surprises with these customers. When they show up, they're buying a car, they pay the price that they expect. And you can ask these questions over and over and over again. And the predictions and the tagging, we can help by evaluating that customer experience, by evaluating all of the reviews that are out there to guide through some of the opportunities here. I love that Brian put that up before when he was talking about the searches that people are throwing out there. That is how consumers are going to be searching. Reviews are elevating. So last year, year over year, 25% more reviews were written on franchise automotive dealers than the year before. You have millennials coming into the market. They don't want to talk to people, right? You have digital natives that are growing into the market. They don't want to talk to people. They want to have everything mapped out. It's true. It is sad. Yeah, I know some of them. So when you work into preparing for that type of digital experience, when you work into creating that, there are no shortcuts, right? So reputation management, as we've seen it in the market, and I've seen a lot of things going through and having discussions with customers, it's a vanity exercise. So you're trying to drive to a star rating. You're trying to drive to getting your customers to leave information. And the reality is what you should do is be taking that as the greatest focus group in the world. You've got all this information. You've got all this guidance that's coming from customers, millions and millions of reviews coming in. And there's such an opportunity to take that and apply to building a better business, building better processes, building better programs, hiring the right staff, ensuring that you're training in the right way. There's so much information. And so as we move toward what is possible with AI, what's possible with taking this information and applying it to your business, I think that is the new sort of threshold that people will be applying. It's only going to get wider. We're only get more reviews coming in. There's only going to be more information coming in through AI search. More people are going to go from standard Google searches to AI search. And I think there's just an opportunity for us to probably save money from a lot of the consulting dollars that we're spending to get into a place where we can listen to our customers more effectively. Thank you.